Hello YouTube, ImNotFine Dane. Today we are going to have a look at the upcoming set Kamigawa Neon Dynasty for Historic Brawl. This is a complete set review and I will do this in 6 parts, one for each of the 5 colors and then a review video for multi and colorless cards. Again, this review is solely focused for the format Historic Brawl. And yeah, I'm not going to review cards based on whether or not they're playable in other formats. So let's jump right into it. Oh, and also, if you want to check out the other videos, as soon as they will go up, I will update the description and then you can just jump to the next one, basically. Anyways, Ancestral Katana, 1 and a white artifact equipment. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you may pay 1, and then when you do, attach it. And equipped creature gets +2/+1 and equip 3 is the default cost there. So we already have 1 and a white equipments that equip for 1, give +2/+1 and have additional upside, and those only see play in equipment decks and are okay in those decks. The big downfall in equipment decks is usually the equip costs are pretty high, and this is no exception. So this is a maybe even in equipment decks. So yeah. Next up, we have All the Dawn Sky, our first legendary card that can potentially be a commander. 3 and a white, so 5 in total. 5/4 legendary creature, Dragon Spirit, Flying Vigilance, and a lot of text. Basically, this is part of a cycle of dragons that when they die, they can do one of 2 things. And AO has the first effect then. When AO dies, choose 1. Either look at the top 7, you choose any number of non-land permanents with total mana value 4 or less among them, and put everything that fits that criterion total onto the battlefield. The rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Or just put 2/+1/+1 counter on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle. So, you will hear this a lot probably for the other dragons as well. The big problem is that the value of this creature cycle is it is a big body that kind of wants to die, but if you are killing off a creature to get value out of it, you are like you don't care for the stats, and we're paying a premium here for the stats, so I'm not sure how playable these are. As a commander, I don't think this is very great at all. Like, I don't see any build around factor here, and no, I don't think mono white vehicles will be a thing whatsoever. I think it's a fun little card, but I don't think it's a strong one. Banishing Slash, double white sorcery. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature, and then if we control an artifact and an enchantment, we create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. So, first and foremost, there are not that many decks out there that play like a critical mass of enchantments and artifacts for this to be online. And the only one I can currently think of would be a Layla, Artful Provocateur, and that is a 3-color commander. And double white is quite annoying in 3 colors, like to pay, if you're a 3-color deck. I usually see this as a disenchant. Because it's sorcery speed, you can also just not like kill an attacking creature before it hits you. So I don't think this is a great removal spell. Befriending the Moths, 3 and a white saga. The first 2 chapters give us target creature you control gets +1/+1 and flying until end of turn. And then the 3rd chapter transforms the saga. And we get Imperial Moth, a 2/4 flying creature out of it. So I don't think this will see a lot of play. The problem here is that it is just too little value on each of the things, right? So you pay 4 mana and you just give a creature +1/+1 and flying, right? And then it gets that again next turn, but there are enchantments that just give +1/+1, or like flying, like there are things that give flying and draw a card instead of +1/+1, which is arguably better, and that's for 2 mana, right? And this doesn't even give this bonus permanently, and I don't think that getting the creature out of it is too great in a Historic Brawl, so that's a no for me. Blade Blizzard Kitsune. 2 and a white, 2/2, creature, Fox Ninja. Ninjutsu is back. I'm going to explain in Ninjutsu once, and then I'm just going to assume that you know what Ninjutsu does. Basically, return... I'm just going to read the flavor text, honestly. 3 and a white. This is the Ninjutsu cost. It's different on each Ninjutsu creature. Return an unblocked attacker you control to hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking. There are a lot of cool rules things you can do with Ninjutsu. You can just ninjutsu over and over and over in the same attack step as well, and swap out different creatures to get multiple ATBs. And overall, ninjutsu is a great mechanic. But the main idea is, this is a 2 and a white 2/2 double striker, which is like okay. The cool thing you can do with this is, for example, this attacks, or like a first striker attacks, deals first strike damage, then we ninjutsu this in, and then it still deals the normal damage. Like it has double strike, but the double strike basically deals first strike and normal damage. But if you ninjutsu it in between the first strike and the normal damage, it just deals the normal damage while the other creature dealt the first strike damage. Kind of weird, kind of cool, but ultimately I think this is too low statted. Born to Drive. 2 and a white. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and or vehicle you control. So I believe if you have a vehicle that's currently a creature, it doesn't get an additional +1/+1. And then Channel, a new mechanic where it's basically kind of like cycling, but you don't always draw a card. So you pay 2 and a white and discard this card from your hand. And then in this case of Born to Drive, this effect gives you create 2/1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens with this creature's crew's vehicles as though its power were 2 or greater. So we're getting a bunch of vehicle support this set. And this might be cool for a bunch of decks, like Magda really loves vehicles, right? There is also Sapala, I believe, the Boros Dwarf, that is a vehicle commander. So a bunch of cool things for that. I think, looking at the full set, the support is if we get one more vehicle set, we're definitely there, right? But I'm not sure if we're there yet. Channel, I don't value the first value mode too much, to be perfectly honest. I mostly look at this card for the Channel effect, because Channel is instant speed and pretty much uncounterable. Like, they need to have a Tails and a Stifle, something like that, to counter a triggered ability, or activated ability in this case, rather than have an actual counterspell, which is pretty strong. So this is 2 and a white, instant speed, create 2 1/1s. The good rate for this would be 2 mana, but at 2 mana this might have been too strong, because Channel, again, additional upside, right? This, I think this is probably the best 3 mana create 2 1/1s effect we currently have, but I don't know how much that says overall anyways. Brilliant Restoration. Oh boy, the restoration cycle is a cycle that has 4 of the respective colors in the cost. So that's 3 and 4 white, so 7 in total. Sorcery, return all artifacts and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is basically a late game I win button. The optimal way to play this card is have a big back and forth game with the opponent, and then you're I win. What you can do as well is, if you're a self-mill deck and you set up a combo from the graveyard and have a bunch of enchantments and artifacts in the graveyard, that when they all enter the battlefield, you just win. This is how I would play this card. Ultimately, 4 white is really difficult to pay. Like it's not always possible to cast this in a 2-color deck even. Right, monocolor obviously doesn't really have a problem with that, but like I feel like this at least wants to be played in 2 colors. So it's like green white if you're enchantments, blue white if you're caring about the artifacts, and then in 3 colors or more this is borderline unplayable. And I don't think the effect does enough for the mana cost, because like this is not a card you can just play. This is a card you need a lot of setup for, and I don't think this is too amazing. Cloudsteel Kirin, 2 and a white, 3/2 artifact creature, equipment Kirin. So just to explain, they have a cycle of creatures that are equipments and creatures. So flying, equipped creature has flying and you can't lose the game and your opponents can win the game. And reconfigure. The reconfigure is basically just equip. Kind of different, right? Because this is a creature and it has to work differently. But with reconfigure, you equip this to a card, and then this Cloudsteel Kirin is no longer a creature while it's attached. And then you can also just unattach it. And while this is attached to something, the equipped creature has flying and you can't lose the game and the opponent can't win the game. Platinum Angel doesn't really see play, and I don't think this will see play either for that reason. But it's a 3 mana 3/2 flying artifact creature. That fact on its own is decent, because we're getting a lot of artifact creatures, and commanders like Zabaz really just want their critical mass. Like affinity will be more of a thing, and this will see play just based on its stats and not for the reconfigure at all. Like if this sees play, this is affinity aggro basically. And I think this is nice for this deck, but you're not going to equip this to anything. Dragonfly Suit, 2 and a white, 3/2 flying crew 1. This is a vehicle, so you can tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more, and then it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. I think this is nice. If this sees play, it will see play in like affinity decks. Not much more, but I think it's noticeably worse than just for the for a creature with the same stats like the one we saw before. A Ganjo Exemplar, 1 and a white, 2/1. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So we have a couple of things going on here. First, basically the theme of the set is like old versus new, so it's like enchantments versus artifacts. So we also get a bunch of enchantment support, and also the theme of the samurais in this is like kind of an exalted theme, if that says anything to you, where it buffs your creatures if your creatures attack alone, right? But it's only buffing samurais or warriors, and that is a big like samurais and warriors. Like samurais absolutely not happening as a tribal deck. Warriors, even I don't think warriors will be we don't have a good warrior payoff commander is the problem. So this basically only looks at itself, and if it attacks alone, it's like decent, and if it doesn't attack alone, which is way more likely, it's not great. So yeah, there's maybe random synergies, but you're better off putting good cards into your deck. Era of Enlightenment, 1 and a white, is Saga. First chapter, Scry 2. Second chapter, Gain to Life. Third chapter, Transform. And it transforms into Hand of Enlightenment, which is basically a 2/2 first striking creature. I honestly, I think I like this card. I like the Scry effect. The gaining 2 life is like irrelevant, but here's the thing. I would play this in Heliod, because like it just incidentally gains life and is like a body, but it can also... Like the problem, the more I think about it, the less I would play it in here, because the life gain, if you play this on 2, you gain the life exactly before you play Heliod, basically, which is problematic. So I wouldn't even play this in Heliod. Sithis, I think there are better enchantments for Sithis. Yeah, I think this is nice, personally, but competitively, not sold on that one. The Fall of Lord Konda, 2 and a white saga again. First chapter, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. Second chapter, each player gains control of all permanents they own. And third chapter, transform. And it transforms into Fragment of Konda, a 1/3 defender that when it dies, draws a card. So we're paying 3 mana for a removal spell mainly. The second chapter will not be really relevant, especially since Agent of Treasury got banned and Steel Effects got less popular. And the body is absolutely atrocious. It even has Defender for some reason. Probably flavor reasons. And when it dies, draw a card. I don't think this is playable. Next card. Farewell. 4 and double white sorcery. Choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and graveyards. So this is basically the board wipe at 6 or more mana, basically. Like, this is so insanely flexible at 6 mana. And it doesn't hit Planeswalkers notably, but I'd argue you're going to mostly use this in conjunction with Planeswalkers. This basically, like, if we are in blue-white control, we have like our Midnight Clock on the field and a Planeswalker, and then we're exiling all creatures, enchantments, and graveyards. This is dealing with so many things. It does non-targeted exiling. Like, it just gets around in hexproof indestructible board, basically, and it is just extremely potent at what it does. The big problem is it costs 6 mana. If, like, in white, you have so many good board wipes at 4 and, like, even 5 mana, I don't see myself playing this simply for the fact that it comes down too late in the matchup where it should matter. But if we are playing a 6 mana board wipe for some reason in white, this is the board wipe. Next up, Go Shintai of Shared Purpose. 3 and a white, 1/3, legendary enchantment, creature, shrine, vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit token for each shrine you control. So we're going back to Kamigawa, so we're getting more shrines. So the current cycle is it's now a enchantment creature, which I think is worse. The effect now happens at the end step this time, and only if we pay 1. That is basically the whole cycle. The problem, I have multiple problems with the new shrines, because the old shrines were basically the strength of the the other shrines were all, you play them, they just sit around passively. You do not have to pay anything for their effect. They just generate more and more value, and then you just wipe the board repeatedly. With these, you have to pay mana, and you kind of can't wipe the board because you're wiping your own creatures. So for the current shrine strategies, these are not the greatest. But overall, more shrines, like just having the type shrine, is extremely potent for shrine decks, because they all have effects based on how many shrines you control, and there are not many shrines currently, so we're just getting a ton of shrines, which is great. And like, this might just, like, the new era of shrines might just be a bit different, right? But overall, a 4 mana body, 4 mana 1/3 body, it's nothing. It just dies to anything. And then at the beginning of the end step, we create a 1/1 for each shrine we control. and we have to pay 1. So this is like a 5 mana play that gives us 3 1/1s immediately. But I do realize that shrines, like, you can't really judge them off their they give continuous value, right? That's their strength. So I would play this for the keyword more than the effect, basically. Next up, Golden Tail Disciple. 2 and a white, 2/3, enchantment creature, Fox Monk, lifelink. Lifelink deck. For lifelink decks, this is too expensive. Simply because of the fact that you want your lifelink effects to have mind 1 and 2, usually, and if it's at 3, then it better have better stats or just a different repeatable way of gaining life. I don't see this happening. It's obviously not for constructed, it's for limited purposes. Yeah, next. Hotshot Mechanic. 1 mana, 2/1 artifact creature, Fox Pilot, and Hotshot Mechanic crews vehicles as though its power were true greater. I don't care about the card stacks. It's a 1 mana, 2/1 artifact creature. This excites me. So, first and foremost, we have a bunch of 1 mana, 2/1s, but we're still not at the point where every single 1-drop in our white weenie decks is a 1 mana, 2/1. So this is just great for that. But being an artifact creature is also great for affinity aggro. So yeah, this is basically a card I'm happy to see, just to this support. It gives a critical mass to decks that need the critical mass. Great card. Imperial Oath. 5 and a white, sorcery. Create 3 2/2 samurai creature tokens with vigilance. Scry 3. This is too expensive. This historic brawl is clearly not the format for this. Next. Imperial Recovery Unit. 2 and a white, 3/4 artifact vehicle. Whenever Imperial Recovery Unit attacks, return target creature or vehicle card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand and crew 2. This card is it's okay. The big problem is if you're using this on curve, you're not going to have something in graveyard, and if you do, you don't have it. You play a 2-drop, then you play this on 3, and then your 2-drop needed to die by this point, and then you play creature crew, get your 2-drop back. That's the idea. If it was a 4/3, maybe because this probably wants to be in an aggressive deck, a more aggressive deck, but I don't think this will see too much play. Imperial Subduer. 2 and a white, 3/2. Whenever a samurai warrior you control attacks alone, tap target creature you don't control. Again, I really don't value the samurai warrior attacks alone line of text too much. So, yeah, this is not a historic brawl card. Intercessor's Arrest. 2 and a white. Enchantment Aura, enchant permanent. Enchanted permanent can't attack, block, or crew vehicles, and activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. This is a nice card. We have some cards for 2 and a white that enchant permanents and they can't activate their abilities. And this is basically a critical mass print. We already have 3 of these effects. One of them is Nahiri's Binding, which is 1 a double white, which is slightly worse to cast. If you want to disable Planeswalkers, you should play this. You're mostly playing this probably in enchantment based decks because other removal is better, but this being an enchantment has value for those decks. It's critical mass. You don't need it, but it's nice to have. Invoke Justice. 1 and 4 whites. Man, these casting costs they set. Sorceries. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles target player controls. So this is basically a 5 mana reanimation spell for any permanent and gives 4 +1/+1 counters on our things in total. Casting cost. That is a big problem. So this basically says only playable mono white whatsoever, right? Not even black white reanimator, right? So we need to play this in mono white, and then what? This, I don't think this is too great, because if we're in mono white, we don't have any like good ways to put big things into the graveyard quick enough for this to gain value. And just as a value engine, I don't think this does it. Kitsune Ace. 1 and white, 2/2. When a vehicle you control attacks, choose one. It either gains first strike under end of turn, or we untap Kitsune Ace. If we have a vehicle deck, I'm not even sure if we're playing this. Because, here's the big because, like maybe you play it for the untap ability, right? The first strike is not that relevant. We would play it in a vehicle deck because it basically, like we crew something, we attack, we untap the Kitsune Ace, and now another vehicle is ready to block the opponent when they're attacking. That's the idea behind it. But ultimately, why not just play a 2-mana 3/2 if we're playing vehicles, because power matters so much in those decks. And yeah, basically, why not just play 2-mana 3-power creatures if we're in the vehicle deck. Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa, 3 and a white, 3/3, legendary creature, Dragon Spirit, Flash, flying. When it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as we control Kyodai. And then Wooburg gets +5/+5 until end of turn. So, this thing is a 5-color commander. We have a new 5-color commander. Here is the problem. Kind of sucks. Activated ability does basically nothing. The whole point of this card would be that if we have something on the board that we want to protect, this thing can protect it, basically. So, board wipe, in response, flash flying, and we use this as basically a 4-mana protection spell. Kyodai dies, but the other permanent can't die for as long as we control Kyodai. And yeah, so this is basically a protection spell with one extra layer, but if we have something that we want to protect, we also need to draw it, and that is a big problem. And if our deck is full of things that we want to protect, then like, that sounds like good stuff. Yeah, I don't see this thing happening, neither as a commander or a card in the 99, especially in the 99, because we can't really play it in anything else than 5 colors, right? So, yeah, Light the Way. 1 mana, 1 white, instant, choose one. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle and untap it, or return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. I think this is a great card. Because this does a couple of things we already had in the game, but at the same time, this does, like, this is a bunch of niche cards put together. So the decks I'm thinking of playing this in is a +1/+1 counter deck, and then we have the option of saving something. Or Oswald Fiddlebender might want to play this. The first versions of Oswald used to run 1-mana untap effects, and this is the best one because this also gives toughness to Oswald in case they want to shock him. We can return him to hand if they want to remove him. We can bounce our own permanents, so we have more casting triggers under Paradox Engine, like while that is out on the field. And we can also just use it to untap Oswald to go higher in mana. So I think overall, this is a pretty decent card. The big thing is, these 1-mana untap effects won't see too much play in Oswald until we have a 4-mana mana rock that produces colored mana and comes into play untapped. That is the big deal. Because the current play pattern of Oswald turn 2, turn 3, 3-mana rock, upgraded into a 4-mana rock that comes into play tapped but produces colors, and then on turn 4 win. But how if the rocks would come into play untapped and would produce colors, that's where Light the Way would come in extremely handy, and I would immediately basically restructure the deck and just have all these 1-mana untap effects in. But currently that's not the case, so yeah. But I think watch out for this card. Maybe not now, maybe not next set, but along the way you will see this card being played. Light Pause, Emperor's Voice, 1 and a white, 2/2 legendary creature, Fox Advisor. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura with a different name than each aura you control, basically not a line of text in a straight brawl. Put that card onto the battlefield attached to Light Pause, Emperor's Voice, then shuffle. Holy moly. Okay, first and foremost, in the 99, I think this is a nice aura card. Right, this is just a nice card in the 99 if you're playing like Voltron-based strategies. As a commander, holy moly, this thing is your new Voltron commander in town, basically. Like, this is kill on sight. The big problem that this card currently has, if you can call it a problem, is we currently do not have any auras that can attach themselves to Light Pause that give indestructible or protection or hexproof or anything. That is the big problem. If we had like a 2 or even 3 mana, any aura that gives indestructible to something, this would be way better, because any 3 mana aura we would play, just now it's indestructible, now it's so much harder to remove, right? But we do not have that. So the way you would build this is you obviously only have like offensive enchantments, and then you have a bunch of 1-mana protection spells for Light Pause, which is like a fine way to build the deck, right? And I think this is a really fun and exciting commander, and I am actually hyped to build around this. So 99, nice commander, holy moly. And this only, again, the more auras get released, like, it only takes 1 busted aura at like 1 or 2 mana for this thing to completely get blown out of the water, right? Because like, just blow everything else out of the water, because you always search, like, this is super deterministic, right? You know what you can get. This tutors and attaches, and it's just amazing. This is certainly a future-proof card. Lion Sash, 1 and a white, 1/1. Artifact creature, equipment cat, 1 and white. Exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. And then reconfigure. I think this is a really cool card. This is, again, like a creature enchantment. It's basic. If you read this as an equipment, it's a 2 mana 2 equipment, and then we can start exiling things from graveyards and put counters on Lion Sash, but we can also put +1/+1 counters on Lion Sash by any other means. So, for example, in Selesnya, you can just put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on your things, and then when something is equipped, Lion Sash is basically giving all of their counters to whatever it's equipped to as well. So you can make massive creatures. But here's the problem. I don't think this is too great in pure equipment decks, because it doesn't give enough oomph for how much mana it costs initially. And in +1/+1 decks, you're usually going wide, so, and not tall, so I don't see this being played there as well. So I think it's a cool card, but I don't think it is too great. Lucky Offering, 1 white sorcery, destroy target artifact with mana value 3 or less. You gain 3 life. Basically, disenchant effects are not played. This one see play. Yeah. March of Otherworldly Light, X and a white. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. Exile target artifact, creature or enchantment with mana value X or less. This is artifact, enchantment, or creature removal, which is nice, but the problem is you are basically, like, if you're exiling anything from your hand, you're 2 for 1ing yourself automatically, basically. And if you're not if you're not too forewarning yourself, you're basically always paying one more than the opponent at the very least that they used to play their card, and they probably also got value out of their card by that point as well. So it is an instant, notably, so that makes it much better. But I don't think this is too great. Michiko Reign of Truth, 1 and white saga. The first 2 chapters each time give you target creature gets +1/+1 at the end of turn for each artifact and or enchantment you control, and then it transforms into Portrait of Michiko, and it gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Holy moly, this thing is insane. Because if you play this as an Enchantress, it's a 2-mana enchantment, which is like playable. And then it's like another copy of Nettled Cyst and whatnot. And this is really strong. This thing kills. This makes any creature huge. Basically, with the first 2 chapters, immediate board impact. If you have a life link, you're just getting so much life. And this is perfect. I love this. And obviously in artifact decks as well, it's worse in artifact decks because it is an enchantment by itself. Right, so it's better in enchantment decks because this also triggers like whenever you like cast an enchantment triggers. But this is still playable in artifact decks, even though it's not an artifact. So yeah, great card. Moth Rider Patrol, 1 mana, 1/1 flying, Fox Warrior, and 3 and a white. Tap target creatures. The activated ability is awful, and we have a bunch of 1 mana 1/1 flyers already, but if you want a critical mass for something like a Saphara Sky's Blade deck, sure, that's nice. Otherwise, I don't think this is playable. Norika Yamazi, the Poet. 2 and a white, 3/2, Vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior control attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn. Yeah, I don't think the samurai or warrior line of text is too relevant. This basically needs to look out for itself, so whenever this attacks, but we can't even cast it at instant speed, so I don't think this is too great. Also, just to note, I don't think this is good either in the 99 or as a commander. Cat, what are you doing? I'm doing a review, but I'm not going to cut anything, okay? Yes, I know you want attention. Regent's Authority, 1 white, instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 at the end of turn. If it's an enchantment creature or legendary creature, instead of put a +1/+1 counter on it, it gets +1/+1. So basically, if it's an enchantment or a legendary creature, it instead basically gains half of the stats forever. I don't think, like, this doesn't give hexproof, this doesn't give indestructible, and just combat tricks, I don't think those will do anything too great, so I don't think this will see play. Repel the Vile, 3 and a white. Choose 1. Exile target creature with power 4 or greater. Exile target enchantment. Too expensive. Yeah, don't think it will see play. Restoration of Aiganyo, 2 and a white. Saga. First chapter. Search a library for a basic planes, reveal it, put it into hand, shuffle. Second chapter, you may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then chapter 3, transform. And it transforms into Architect of Restoration, an enchantment creature with 3/4 vigilance. Whenever it attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit. Overall, if we look at the front side, this draws us a card basically because it gives us a planes from deck to hand. Then we may discard any card, and then we return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and it transforms into a creature. This is actually a ramp card because we always get the planes to hand, and then we can discard the planes, and then we can actually return the planes from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This happens in our next turn though, and it comes into battlefield tapped, so it doesn't it's not like a real, like the 3 mana ramp spells in green usually just give you the land untapped next turn. Like it comes into play tapped now, but next turn. This basically is 2 turns of tapped and the battlefield tapped, so not as potent. But it is basically a 3-mana ramp spell in white, which is pretty good. And then it transforms, so, and the body is not nothing. So I think this is interesting. It's a white ramp. And this is not even touching on the subject of this thing can discard something else and reanimate it like a creature for just, you know, tempo, basically. Just yeah, I think this is a nice card. I don't exactly know where it's going to see play, but I don't think this is a bad card. Next up, Selfless Samurai, 1 and a white, 2/2. Whenever a Samurai Warrior attacks alone, it gains lifelink end of turn. Sacrifice it, another creature you control gains indestructible end of turn. This is basically, first, I don't care about the first line of text, and then this is basically a more expensive Selfless Savior. But it is a more expensive Selfless Savior, because Selfless Savior's strength is being able to be played on turn 1 and then play a 2-mana commander. You can't do this with this one, so it loses a lot of power with that. That being said, if you do care about those effects, this is another copy of those for you, so that is pretty great. 7-Tail Mentor, or 3 and a white, 2/3. Whenever it enters battlefield or dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. Basically drafter, but I don't think this is too amazing in a start ball. We have way better options if we want to get +1/+1 counters off of our 4-drops in white. Skyblast Samurai, 6 and a white, 4/4. This spell costs 1 less for each enchantment you control. Flying. This basically is affinity for enchantments, and I think this is pretty interesting in the Enchantress decks. We play this potentially for 3, 2, maybe even 1 mana, and then it's a 4/4 flyer. And the big deal here is it is an enchantment itself. Enchantment decks really want that critical mass, and everything else is just unplayable almost, or needs to be really good. And this being an enchantment is great, because then you can just cantrip off of things like Sithis. So thumbs up for me. Spirited Companion, 1 and white, 1/1. When it enters battlefield, draw a card. This is an enchantment creature as well. Holy moly, they did it. They print good white cards. I think this card is amazing, because this is not a busted card by any means. I just love that they actually like have a cantripping 2-drop creature in white now, and it being an enchantment is really strong for, you know, enchantment decks. You see, you know, maybe Enchantress decks do get buffed quite a bit this set. Maybe they didn't need the help, but oh boy, these things can help and just draw you so many cards, and I'm excited for this. This is basically like glue in your deck, right? You just play this and it's nice, and I like it. Sunblade Samurai, 4 and white, 4/4. Enchantment creature is human samurai. Vigilance. So body not too great, but channel 2, discard Sunblade Samurai, search a library for a basic planeswalker, reveal it, put it into a hand, then shuffle, you gain 2 life. This is basically a 2-mana plane cycling, gain 2 life, which is, I currently can't think of too many decks that want this. But I think this might be playable in live game, because it's giving you a land drop and life at instant speed, while also having the potential of being a creature later on. But there is a lesson, environmental sciences from Strixhaven, that doesn't really see play, so I don't think this will be too great either. But I mean, it's a neat card. Touch the Spirit Realm, 2 and a white, enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, excuse me. Whenever it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until it leaves the battlefield. Right? That is nice. That's just you know, standard stuff basically. But it has channel. 1 and white, discarded. Exile target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is so versatile. This thing is basically, you can remove an opponent's commander if it's a creature, right? But then you can also exile a target artifact or creature and return it under the owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. We can exile the opponent's things if they have a lethal attack, and then just fade one of their attackers, and then they're like don't kill you, and then you can just kill them in the next turn. And you can also just exile one of your own things for blinking purposes if you want more ATBs, or just to protect it. This thing brings a lot of like medium to good effects to the table, and jams like 3 of them into one card, and it's super flexible, and I really like this card. Like, this is the kind of powerful card I enjoy, because this is nothing here screams I am busted, but this is just a lot of utility. So I think this card will see play, not only in enchantment based decks, and yeah, really nice card. Wondrous Intervention. 1 in a white, instant. It deals 4 damage to a target attacking or blocking creature. I don't think combat tricks don't do anything in Historic Brawl, so not going to see play. Next up, the Wandering Emperor. 2 in a white, Planeswalker. So 3 loyalty, flash, a flash Planeswalker. As long as enters the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities anytime you could cast an instant. +1. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature against first target of turn. -1. Create a 2/2 white samurai token with vigilance. -2. Exile target type creature, you gain 2 life. So this is the first flash Planeswalker we have. And this is really hard to evaluate. So where we have a 4 mana Teferi that can activate his abilities anytime we can use an instant. This can only use the ability as an instant when she enters. So during the opponent's turn, end step, flash in, activate, create a samurai, and then pass to your turn basically, and you haven't really wasted anything. Or if we attack, they block. In response, flash in, +1/+1 first strike. We probably win combat through that, and that is also a bunch of value as well. Overall, I think flash, like this again, this is the first flash Planeswalker we have in our in the game of Magic the Gathering whatsoever. Like, completely new thing. So I think it's a bit harder for me to evaluate, but I think this is good, because the big thing here is, yes, the starting loyalty is decent, but it's only a -1 to create a 2/2 body, which is a really good rate on Planeswalkers, and it ticks up for 1. So you can also +1, -1, +1, -1. So every second turn, you put in a 3/3, like basically on stats. Every second turn you gain like a 2/2 and put a counter on a 2/2 counter, 2/2 counter. And I'm interested whether this will obviously see play in White Weenie. I'm not even sure if this will see play like in control, maybe like an opponent creature attacks, flash in, exile flash in, exile target tap creature and gain life. Overall, pretty versatile, and I'm excited to see where this is going. As a commander, I think it loses a bunch of value. Like, this is a card I think is better than the 99, because if we're playing this as a commander, the opponent knows that this card is coming, and the big surprise factor of this coming in with flash is what makes it strong. So if this is a commander, it kind of loses that strength. When we were young, 3 in a white, instant, up to 2 target creatures each gain +2/+2 end of the turn. If you choose an artifact and an enchantment, those creatures also gain lifelink under end of turn. Again, combat tricks not too great, and we currently don't really have a good deck that utilizes artifacts and enchantments, and yeah, don't think this is playable. Oh yeah, we're done with the set review for white. Let me know what you thought of it. Again, look in the description if you want to search up for the other parts. If the other parts are not in the description, that means I haven't uploaded them yet. Hope you enjoyed Kamigawa, and man, I'm excited for the set. See you in the next video.